Merry Vidmas, everyone. Welcome to Vidmas number 21. I'm your host, CastleGate, and today we are going to be answering the age-old question. By age-old, I mean from earlier this year. How much easier is Gemcraft Frostborn Wrath if you play it in chilling mode as opposed to normal mode? I've already tested this out, and honestly, I think it's relatively easy, but you know what? I think the best way to test this is to try playing it on Frostborn difficulty, which is the normal difficulty, the first difficulty and the only difficulty that the game came out with originally. And let's just go ahead and play the first field. Let's see how difficult it is. Actually, here's a really good question. When you play the first field, does it have some set stats and stuff? Or does it all come into effect? Let's see, how much mana did we start with? 389. Okay, so not much, it seems. Let's see, let's go ahead and put down some stuff. Let's build some walls. Let's not do that, which is terrible. Just going ahead and putting walls in the wrong spot. I'll tell you what, out of all the Gemcrafts so far, I find Frostborn Wrath to be the one that's like the most laggy out of all of them. And not by just a little bit too, by quite a margin in terms of how much processing power it requires from your workstation or your computer to play. Huge difference. There we go. And you know what, let's just do a few things here. Let's do that. Let's send a couple of waves early. And am I going to lose? Potentially. Alright, let's put a tower there. And let's give it something stronger. Let's put a grade 2 gem here. Mix up the colors so we get the most bonus out of them. Let's go ahead and also just put a couple of gem bombs down so we get some wasps. Yep, the wasps will take care of that and clean it up. There you go. So it's not overly difficult. It is just the first map. Oh, and wow, I got a puzzle piece for the fragment on the first map. That's interesting. Okay, ignoring all of these and all of the journey notes and stuff, we've got... Basically, it wasn't too difficult, but I did have to do a little bit of trickery. I had to do some gem bombing to try and basically get, you know, just to survive. Because I did, after all, I did go ahead and send the last couple of waves earlier, and I did also anger the last wave. So let's try and replicate this time what I did. Let's replicate that in chilling mode. See how we go. Now, I started with something like, was it 320 or 380 something mana? In chilling mode, you start off with the strike spell Frost, or Freeze. You also start with an extra 300 mana. You get to put down 3 buildings, your first 3 buildings for free. And a whole bunch of other stuff, which basically makes the game a lot easier. Yep, okay, 689. So we already have that bonus 300, which means I can do this, actually. So straight off the bat. Oh, also the gems start off with a little bit more damage, as opposed to their counterparts from the Frostborn version. So if I sell that, let's speed things up a little bit. Yeah, I can see how all this extra stuff. Here we go. Let's chuck that in there and then send these two. Get rid of that. It's pretty much exactly what I did. Oh yeah. Already so much easier. So, chilling mode. Chilling mode does make things a lot easier, especially sort of early on and maybe even midway into the game. But once you're close to finishing the game and you're well established and so forth, I think all of those extra additions you get from playing in chilling mode, their relevance fizzles out. So I suppose it just makes the whole journey, up to a certain point much easier. Therefore, it's less of a grind. I think that was one of the main reasons why chilling mode was made in the first place. The game author did receive a lot of complaints about how it was a bit of a grind, and it was really difficult to play this game when it first came out. So the response was, we create chilling mode. Now I'll just delete that too. Let's see what chilling does. Frostborn is normal. Oh, and before we go into that, I should probably go ahead and mention that the game was, even in Frostborn mode, this is an easier version than what Frostborn or normal mode was previously, again, because I think within 2 or 4 weeks after this game was released, a lot of the wizard stashes that hold things like battle traits and skills and, higher tier puzzle fragments for your talisman and stuff like that, all of those wizard stashes, or most of them, actually existed in the trial section of a lot of fields. So afterwards, because a lot of people were struggling to finish the trials, because in all honesty, a lot of them are quite difficult, then to allow people to just sort of get the game moving along and not have such a high barrier to get all of their skills and stuff unlocked and battle traits and all of that, a lot of the wizard stashes were all moved, at least all of the ones that were in trials, they were moved out of trials, and then they were placed back into either endurance or journey mode, most likely endurance, which made them a lot more accessible. So when this game first came out, I kid you not, it was really difficult. Really difficult. And the funny thing is, if you're going to put wizard stashes in trials, nothing you do before attempting that trial actually helps you out in that trial, on any trial for that matter, because doing a trial ignores all of your progress that you've made in terms of any skills that you've got or your fragments in your talisman, all the bonuses. All of that stuff is ignored. Every time you play a trial, no matter what state your game is in, the trial is exactly the same. So, yeah, it was really difficult. Luckily, like I said, the game author went ahead and pared that back, so a lot of wizard stashes were moved. All of the ones that were in trials are no longer in trials, so Frostborn is already much easier, only less than a month after it was released, made much easier than previously when it was first brought out. Chilling, on the other hand, was to address how people were struggling on it, and that's kind of fair enough. Honestly, this game, it was really, from my opinion, it was designed to be relatively okay and still quite challenging to play for people who were veterans of the whole Gemcraft series. Kind of felt a little bit like it felt a lot like the previous one, which was Chasing Shadows, and there was a lot of aspects there, but there was also some changes as well. The whole layout was a lot bigger and therefore better and all of that stuff, but having that previous game experience with the previous games or previous titles in this series made Frostborn kind of still challenging but bearable. So I could only imagine how this game would really turn away a lot of people who had never played any Gemcraft games before. So it kind of did make sense as well for that reason to go ahead and create a mode that was easier. Chilling mode does that. So what does chilling mode give you? Well, compared to Frostborn, it does these. You start with this freeze spell, which means you already start with a strike spell, and it's a good strike spell because not only does it freeze monsters in place for a while, but you can also get that frozen corpse explosion from killing a monster that's frozen, which means any other monsters that are near it will also get damage from it. It's like a little splash effect around the corpse. Let's see, your gem damage is +3 at the first grade, and it causes an overall damage increase. So basically, it's like saying the first gem... Something you need to know about Gemcraft is the way that it calculates how it does all of its damage and its range and its fire rate, and all of that stuff is all based off the grade 1 variant of that gem. Every other grade above it all calculates back down to the grade 1. So if you're the game author and you want to make all of the gems stronger, you just go ahead and modify the base damage or the base range or the base this, base that, base specials, base fire rate, all of those things, and it has a flow-through effect all the way up the tree. So that is a lot more significant than it looks. It basically makes the gems much more powerful, which means basically all the monsters are killed a lot quicker, or at least a little bit quicker, so that's a nice benefit. The next one, this is a big one. 3 free buildings, except walls, can be built in every battle. So that's pretty significant when you finally unlock amplifiers, because amplifiers are notoriously the most expensive and potentially most useful towers in the game. So once you find and obtain the skill for amplifiers, then that's like, what? First amplifier is what, about 400 mana? Second one is like double that. Third one is like almost double that again. So that's like saying, here you go, I'll let you have about almost 3,000 manas, or 2,500 manas worth of amplifiers for free when you get up to that. And before then, I'll just give you 3 towers for free. That's a big difference, huge difference, especially in a lot of battles where you don't start with any towers or anything on the battlefield. None are gifted to you, so you've got to build them. That's a big starting advantage. Anything that helps you start with an advantage is really helpful, especially early on in the game, and that brings me neatly to the next one. Plus 300 initial mana when a battle starts. That's huge. Basically, if you're playing either setting, especially Frostborn setting, one of the things you need to focus on and think about is getting talisman fragments lined up in rows in your talisman where the markings are the same for all of the fragments in that row, so that you can get a bonus that is just like this, and it's based off the collective rarity of all of those fragments that have those markings, and how many of them there are in the row, whether it be 3, 4, or 5. This is huge as well. So both of these are very big when it comes to helping you out with battles. And like I said, these bonuses, as you progress through the game, their effectiveness kind of fizzles out. So really, it's just to help you get that head start over, the first 20 or 30 fields. 3 buildings is actually going to have a lot more of an effect when you get amplifiers, so that would be useful right through until about, I don't know, when you're probably close to finishing the game, to be honest. That's a massive, massive bonus. Let's see, 3 times the shadow cores drop from monsters. That's a big one. You need shadow cores to upgrade your talisman fragments and also to unlock the locked areas in your fragment, in your talisman, so that you can fit more fragments in it. So yeah, I noticed that actually when I just recently played, just to test out chilling off camera. I played about, I don't know, the first 5 or 6 fields, and I found that I already had like, 6 fragments in my talisman, and they were all upgraded, and I still had a few shadow cores to spare. So that's a big one. That's very useful. It makes sure that your talisman is most likely going to be more full and also more useful, because you're going to have more upgrades for them, all of those fragments, which is great. Monsters give 2 times XP on kill in journey battles. This one's not really... This one will fizzle out in usefulness quite quickly, because if you're playing this game and you're playing it the way most people play it, you're going to be playing until you get to a point where you can start to get mana farms and so forth, and instead of relying on XP from journey mode runs, you'll be doing endurance instead, and you'll be constantly trying to beat it and constantly trying to anger waves more and try and get more XP out of killing more waves of more angered monsters and all that stuff. So this will fizzle out quite quickly, but especially in the first few battles, at least in the first 2 or maybe 3 map tiles that you play in, that's going to make a fair bit of a difference, especially right at the start. Honestly, in map tile W, that's going to make a huge difference, and you're going to find your wizard level is going to go up a lot quicker than if you were doing something similar in Frostborn mode. So, again, more of a head start. Good choice there. Lastly, reduced first wave hit points on fields with first wave above 70 hit points. Now, what does that mean? Basically, just like with the gems, how altering something on the first grade gem will have a flow-through effect on every other gem that is higher grade, the same thing can be said about the monsters in all of the wave stones after the first wave stone. Basically, it's not hard-coded, all of these, monster hit points and monster, thingo for this wave or that. What's calculated is the first, or hard-coded would be the first wave stone, basically. The first wave stone contains, think of it as like a mishmash of a total number of hit points that is spread across all of the enemies in that wave stone. Now, if you confuse what I'm saying about that, think of it as, okay, you could have a wave stone that has 10 monsters, each with 8 hit points, or you could have a wave stone with 20 monsters, each with 4 hit points. The total amount of all hit points from adding up from all of those monsters stays the same. It's just that it's split across, more or less monsters, but the total value, you could say, of hit points for the wave stone is the same. So reducing the first wave's hit points on fields with first wave above 70 hit points, that is a really big one. Basically, it means this is actually going to have more of an effect later on down the track when you're playing further. So all of these effects of chilling above this last one, these all help you out pretty much at the start, or maybe even a little bit in the middle of the game as well, and then they're expected to fizzle out. This, on the other hand, is the opposite. This is the only modifier that I think basically doesn't really come into effect until you're into the mid to late game. And it has a cumulative effect after that. So it makes sure that, I suppose, it balances out all of these, in that these will make your early game and even a little bit of your mid game much easier, and this last one will make sure that all of your late game play doesn't start to become feeling a lot more difficult like in Frostborn. Basically, it nerfs how difficult the last few levels will be. I think there's quite a few fields that have the first wavestone where the monsters have 70 hit points or more. I think that would be around almost mid-game, actually, where that might start to take effect. Because I know the last levels in the last wavestone probably have something like around 220 to 240 hit points. And, of course, the hit points that you start off with on the first wave is something like 5 or 6 for the monsters. So that basically makes sure that you're not encountering too much of a curve late game. So it kind of continues the trend where these fizzle out. This one comes in and takes over in trying to make sure that the game doesn't get too difficult. And that's a good thing as well, I suppose. Instead of helping you out a lot at the start and then throwing you in the deep end. So all around, the entire game is going to be less difficult. That's good. Oh, and by the way, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but basically all of the waves of hitstones, all the waves with hit points that are after the first wave, the total amount of hit points is kind of calculated from the total hit points from the first wave. It's then accumulated based on the wave number and so forth. So that's why it also has a cumulative effect, not only for the first wave, but also all the waves within that field or that battle. It accumulates right down through all of the wave stones, which is good. So that's chilling mode as opposed to Frostborn mode. Is it worth it, or is it required? Yes, absolutely. Would I play with it? No. call myself a veteran of the game because I've played every single game before it. I'm very familiar with Gemcraft. I've also made a few videos on Gemcraft Frostborn Wrath previously, trying to come up with strategies to basically get yourself going, and also things that you can do to help your journey in Frostborn mode. And I even went ahead and after I completed the game in this particular save that I have here, I went ahead and tested all of my theories by going back and starting another game from scratch. This is also in Frostborn mode, and I tested it, and I have to say my journey in this save was actually a lot easier than my journey here, because in this journey I was learning relatively late in the game things about talisman bonuses and mods and all of that stuff. So yeah, this was a bit of a grind, this one here, however, not so much. So Frostborn, if you can play it, then I recommend you go ahead and do that, because you might find chilling a little bit easy. But if you're new to the franchise, or you have found Gemcraft games in the past to be quite difficult, and you're really not in the mood to go ahead and play the game that honestly is quite challenging, all things considered, then chilling is definitely for you. It was required. It's good to see it there. I won't be playing it. However, I'm still waiting for the game maker to go ahead and create Iron Mode, whatever that's going to be. I think that's basically the next level up. It will be much more difficult, I think, to play than Frostborn, because there'll be quite a few limitations. From what I hear, I haven't been keeping up with what's been going on in the developer's blog, but from what I remember, it is supposed to be quite different again. So that should be interesting. I think it's also a few months overdue, so we'll have to get back to that when the developer gets back to that. Anyway, that's Gemcraft Frostborn Wrath. That's chilling mode for you, and also a bit of a description about Frostborn mode. If you have any questions about that, let me know in the comments below. I read all the comments and I will respond to you. Also, if you like this video, then go ahead and give it a like. If you don't like this video, go ahead and give it a don't like. A don't like. I don't think anyone's ever called the thumbs down a don't like before. But you know what? I like it. We're sticking with it. Don't like it if you don't like it. And by all means, go ahead and subscribe. Tickle that bell for more notifications. The algorithm is now extremely, somewhat terrible for people who are not large already in YouTube. So whatever you do, greatly helps me. Appreciate it. And I'll see you all in the next Vidmas. Take care, guys.